Hi everybody, welcome to class. It's Margaret from Sacramento Art Classes. I'm really happy to see you here tonight. Welcome if you're brand new, and I always think it's fun to find out where everybody is coming from. So if you want to put in the chat stream hello and your name and wherever you're from, that would be great. It kind of gives us more of a sense of community. The format for this class is after I'm done talking here, I'll switch the camera back up to the table and we'll start with a quick sketch and get right into the paints. If you ever have a question, you can put it in the chat stream and I'll keep my eye on that during our painting time so that hopefully I can answer your questions for you live, because that's sometimes hard if you have to wait, until I have time over the next few days to scroll through those. So I'm going to try and get your questions answered live. This is the free class. Beginners are welcome and kids are welcome, and it will also be posted as a recorded video. So a little bit after we're done with the live class, Facebook will process the video and it'll appear on my Facebook page, Sacramento Art Classes Facebook page, where you are right now. It'll appear as a recorded video, and I'll leave it there indefinitely so you could come back to it in case you need to leave early, or you can look at it again or share with friends. So things are up there. There are past classes there as well. So hopefully you take advantage of those. Let's see, what else? Our next class, the next freebie, is Tuesday, September 28th at 6:30. I'm aiming to do this on the last Tuesday of every month from now on. I know we've had some switches, and it's hard because I work during the daytime too. So that's my plan, is the last Tuesday, so September 28th. I have not picked a subject yet, so feel free to put a request in the chat if there's something you want me to consider. That would be fun. I'm also starting some classes next week. I teach month-long classes, so I have watercolor classes on Wednesday night and acrylic classes on Thursday night. They're both a 4-week class, and we work on the same painting for the entire month. So if you like this little sampler tonight, you'll get a much more in-depth lesson for 4 weeks on one painting. And we're doing old boats in watercolor class, and we're doing an old barn with a big sunflower in the front of it in the foreground in the acrylics class. You can find out about those on my website, sacramentoartclasses.com, and just click on the Art Classes tab at the top. It'll take you right to the page where you can read about it, and there's PayPal there if you want to sign up. So that starts next week on Wednesday and Thursday nights. Okay, so that's a lot of talk. Let me switch the camera back down onto the table, and we'll start our sketch here, and I'll go over my supplies and the colors that I think I'm gonna use. I may switch last minute, but I'll let you know what I'm doing as I go. So let me switch my camera around, and now I'm going to move it down so you'll see all kinds of crazy movement there. Okay. By the way, if you've never done this with me before, I have my monitor on the table next to me, my computer monitor, and so I can see what I'm doing, but I'm on a little bit of a delay. So if I maybe accidentally get the painting too far off camera, I don't notice it for about maybe up to 10 seconds because of the delay. So don't worry, I'll be watching and I'll take care of that if it happens. So I don't want you to think like it's going to be off camera the whole entire time. So I'm just making a few adjustments to the tabletop here and getting things together. Hey Alice, nice to see you. Hi Bama. I'm just scrolling through. Hi everybody, Larry. Sandy, nice to have everybody here. All right, let's talk about the supplies and the colors, and we'll get right to the sketch. So this was done super quickly, and I just chose red, yellow, blue, and green. I'm not sure the exact colors, but I'll be doing something completely different in tonight's work. What I do want you to learn, and what we're going to try on this one, is we'll be learning a little bit about doing some shadows here and some depth inside of the cup. So there'll be some layers of colors, and in watercolor when we layer, it's called a wash, or sometimes you might hear a glaze. So we'll be doing some washes on this one. I did not put a background on here because sometimes people don't want one, but feel free to do that if you want something on there. So and I'm doing this on Arches 140 pound. I used hot press paper. Normally I prefer cold press, but I used hot press today, and I have to say I'm more of a fan of cold press. I like the way it grabs the paint, and that's just my preference, but whatever paper you have is fine. The brushes that I'm using are 3 of them. I have this is called a number 3. This is a Fibonacci brush, and it's a number 3 quill, but it is close to like a number 8 or 10 round, so I'm using that one. I also have a number 6 round, which is slightly smaller, and I have a detail brush. My detail is it's called a number 8. It's weird. Brush sizing is like clothing sizing. They're all kind of a little bit different, but this is what they look like up here on my hand. So you can see I have kind of 3 different sizes, so I can get more precise, and I can also do a bigger wash on there. All right, so those are the brushes. The paints for tonight. Oh, by the way, I also always have a paper towel or a rag for blotting. You may even want to have some Kleenex for tonight in case we need to use that for blotting. I like to have a spray bottle, and ahead of time before class I always give a little mist, a little spray on my paints, usually just the ones that I'm going to use, but I did this whole palette and it's hot in here, so I'm going to remist that. It juices up and it primes your paints. It gets everything juiced up and nice and colorful and ready to go so that you have bold colors and not wimpy colors. So that is the reason for doing that ahead of time. Let's zoom in a little bit. If my phone camera will cooperate with me. Sometimes it takes a couple times. And also, if you're new and you haven't been with me before, if you could see my setup, it's pretty funny. Oops, what happened? What happened? Sorry, something's going on with my phone. I have to stand on a little chair beside my table so that I can get up on top of my phone and zoom in for you. So it's kind of a silly setup, but that's how it is here, live TV. Okay, so I'm using Daniel Smith paints. I love them, and they're an expensive artist brand of paints. They have very high pigment, and they have some really fun and exciting colors. So for tonight, I'm thinking of using these colors here. The names of mine are called, I'll use a pointer. Here's Imperial Purple, Cobalt Blue, Quinacridone Magenta, or sometimes people say Q Magenta, Bright Violet, Viridian, and Hansa Yellow Light. So I have little abbreviations on there, but those are what I'm thinking of using tonight, and I'll call them out to you as I dip my paints into them so that you'll know precisely what I'm using when the time comes. All right. Suzanne, hi, welcome for your first time on a live class. All right, folks, let's go to the sketch here. I feel like my camera's on extreme close-up, but I think it's just because I've moved the studio around and things are a little different. So let me make a few adjustments so that we can get this all the way on here where we need it. I'm going to move the camera just a little bit so you're going to see things wiggling around. Okay, so when I make the sketch, when I do the sketch for you guys, I do it very light for myself so that I can just trace over it for you. So this is what you would find if you were looking on the tab, the discussion tab. You would find this sketch that you could then trace onto your paper. So I'm going to go over it right now for those of you who did not have a chance to do it ahead of time. So we'll draw this quickly together. You're going to see me using a Sharpie. I want you to use a pencil though. I'm using this Sharpie so it's dark enough for you to see while we're online. But for you, please use a pencil so that you can erase and make adjustments if you have to. All right, so when we're looking at this, we're kind of standing over we're at a position where we're looking kind of down on the cups, and we know that because you can see inside of the cups. If you were level with them, like looking straight on, you wouldn't be able to see inside, but the cup is tipped a little bit so you can kind of see the inside. I don't think this was the best way to illustrate it with my spray bottle, but that's all I have handy here. So when you have that kind of a position, you need to show that there is an opening in your cup or your vessel, and I want to start with that. So we're using a very elongated oval here to show the opening of this cup. I left some space up at the top and a little bit less space down at the bottom of the page. This gives me room to trim things if I want to crop it later, or maybe your paper is smaller and you want to make it into a greeting card. I just wanted to give you lots of space to work on this painting. Okay, so we're going to do an oval shape. Again, you're using pencil, and I'm going to make the opening or the mouth of this cup. Sorry, I have to tilt my paper a little bit. make sure that the sides of this oval, I mean these parts right here when I say the sides, are rounded. They're not coming to a point, they're rounded because of the vantage point that we have. Okay, and so then when you go to the sides of this, we're going to be able to see a little bit of that kind of wraparound on the cup. So it kind of wraps like that and comes down. This is the side of the cup. I'm going to stop there because it's nested inside of the one below it. Hi Tracy, welcome to class. I'm glad you're here. Okay, now watch your angles on here because this is going to help you out. Here's this side of the cup. So the other side needs to be similar. We don't want to have one side of the cup be kind of straight like that and one angled in. We need to have about the same angle on these. So it's a little difficult to see because there is the handle there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw through that handle. And because you're using pencil, you can erase this later if you want to. But I'm just drawing the side of the cup through the handle. Kind of like cutting off the handle from the cup, I guess is what we could say. And then I'm going to put my handle up like this. It's kind of like an old-fashioned type of cup. I imagine this one has something like maybe, you know how you see them where they have like that gilded accent. Sometimes the whole handle might be painted gold or bronze or something. So that's what I imagined for this, but since I didn't paint with metallics, I left it the actual color of whatever this porcelain is on this cup. Okay, and you can feel free to design any kind of handle that you want. If you haven't done the sketch and you're just free doing this right now, you could make it rounded, you could make it kind of fancier, whatever works for you. Here's again a look at what the already painted one looks like. Okay, so let's go into the next one. Same thing on this one. Also watch the angles of this cup. So here's the side of this guy here. Here's the side of this guy here. We need them to be coming in at about the same angle. So we don't want somebody straight. We don't want them parallel like that. We want them to come together. So I'm going to start over here on the left. The top cup is nested inside. So we want to bring the oval, the opening or rim of this around where right here behind that base of that handle. And so I'm drawing the opening first. Please use pencil, not Sharpie. I'm just doing it so you can see me. And so you can see this cup can fit down inside. So we left enough opening on either side of our oval here to know that this cup has gone down inside there. And this one is a slightly different type of cup than the topper one. So I'm going to pull in a little bit and then down. If you've looked at teacups before, you know that there are a lot of different kind of styles to them. So I wanted that one to sort of have curving in like a woman's waist or something. And we can add that handle next. So I pulled sort of a little bit of a scroll type of, scroll is the wrong word, like just a fancy angle on that. Almost looks like an ear. This is the inside of the handle. And then the outside, I'm going to have it come around and down. Again, it still kind of looks like an ear, but here it pinches in a little bit. And we need it to stop so that it can be nested inside the cup that's lower. How are we doing on speed here? I know some people have it pre-drawn, but for those of you who don't, are you feeling a little rushed or are you okay? If you're okay, you can give me a thumbs up or happy face or something like that. Okay, thanks for the thumbs up. All right, I'm seeing a couple thumbs coming up, so maybe we're about ready. All right, so here again is our sample. Notice that the green cup is nested inside that pink guy, and this pink guy is, you know, nice wide opening, just like the top one. So I want to start way up here and bring my oval down so that it's all around this cup. It needs to cut behind this handle. So I'm not going to draw the line through the handle, but I'm going to let it peek out here. Okay, so now we're nested. And this cup is again a slightly different shape. than the other two. It curves. It's not so kind of straight angle. It's more of like a bowl shape, but still we want to watch that each side is matching. So the curve or the angle is the same on each side. So over here, we're going to come down and be at the base. I didn't do the bottom yet. I'm just getting it. Whoops. Sorry, I went a little big there, but I can't erase because I'm with Sharpie. So if you have made a mistake, you can change yours up, but I can't change mine up. And then once you get to the bottom, you're going to join them with a nice oval. Even though it's, you know, the cup is flat on the bottom, we need to show that it has form. It's not just a two-dimensional. We want it to seem three-dimensional. So we're rounding out the bottom. Let's add this other handle here before we finish up. And it's this same kind of sort of fancy handle, kind of looks like an ear. So I'm going to go up like this. And then it notches a little bit and it rounds out. I'm trying to be conscious to keep my hand out of the way here. And I know we have some different shadows than what we're used to if you've been with me before, and that's just because oh, sorry, I can see I really blocked a lot of your view there. I moved the studio around, and so sometimes my head leaves a shadow. I gotta fix this, but not today. Okay, so that's the outside, and now here comes the inside. I'm going to try to keep my hand up here to give you more visibility. And it notches up, and then it connects to the mug part, or the bowl part of the cup. We're almost done. Just a couple more things and we'll be done with the sketch, and we'll go right into color. I promised you that we would, well, I didn't promise, but I hope, and I feel like we're going to be done early on this one. Okay, so in the saucer part, there is that little kind of divot, or that little receptacle area where if you have a sloshy spill, it usually collects right here. So it has an oval again, just like we had the openings to the cups have an oval. And that's where the cup is going to rest. Because we're looking at it the way we're looking at it, this distance here, the distance between here and the front of the lip of this saucer is shorter than here. Here we're looking across the whole saucer, so it might feel weird to you to see it that way, but that's what if you look, you would see so much more of this and less right here because of the perspective of where we're sitting or where we're standing to view it. So I'm going to bring my nice big oval around, trying to keep my hand out of the way for you guys. Comes down here. I find that the easiest way to do this, if you guys are tracing this at home, is I print it out. You might have to print it a little darker than what it is. And then I tape it to a sunny window, and then I tape my watercolor paper over it so I can see right through it. Even when it's a light sketch like this one, I can see right through it, and then pencil sketch onto my watercolor paper. And it gives me a nice, clean sketch that's ready to go. Here's a little bit of this base showing. Okay, I did not draw the shadow because I want us to freeform that, but you can see that I'm having a shadow appear here. And we'll put that in with just paint because I don't want to see a pencil outline, so that's why I didn't put that in there for you. Okay, so we got our sketch going. I'm going to get my pre-drawn one, which is here already on watercolor paper. And I'm going to try, it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be a little difficult. I think I can give myself a little wider angle on my phone. I want you to be able to see my paints and the sample and what I'm painting on today at the same time. There, it looks like that might work for us. So if I need to, I'll hold up the painting closer to the camera if you need a more close-up view. Okay, and then here is my cheat chart. These were the colors that I'm going to use today, so I'll throw those up in there too. Hopefully it will all be visible here when I make my adjustments on everything. Let's go like this. Okay. Oh, so many shadows. Sorry about that. Let's see if I can adjust anything. Nope. Okay, well, we're going to have to deal with that for today. Sorry about that, people. I will make sure to continually hold this up closer for you to see, because it's just not, I don't like the lighting here. Okay, so I'm going to start out by using my largest brush, which is the Fibonacci number 3 quill brush, and which is similar to maybe a number 8 or number 10, probably more like a number 10 round. And let's start up here at the top inside of this cup here. If you look at cups, or if you looked at any ahead of time, you can see that they're all different colors. Here's one that I'm doing in acrylic for a friend of mine. And the inside of this cup is kind of a yellow color, but it still has, I put a little blue in there because that shows us that there's some shadowing happening in there. Okay, here's some kind of white or creamy colored cups. Insides of these are creamy color, and I need you to see, you know, that there still is some darkness in there and there's some shadowing happening on here. So let's be conscious of that when we do it, when we do these. So what I want us to do is pre-wet. So we're doing a wet into wet technique. That means you are pre-wetting your paper, and then you're going to add wet paint right into that. So starting here, I'm just using my largest brush to wet my paper. I'm trying to be careful to stay inside of that pencil line, because when you pre-wet things, your paint is going to travel everywhere that is already wet. So if you accidentally get some water outside of this circle or this oval, your paint will go there as well. So take your time on this. Try to be precise with keeping it where it needs to be. And I know that I often paint more quickly than you do. So I'm going to let you catch up because I left my glasses in the other room. So let me grab that real quick and come back, and we're going to add color. So while I'm gone, you're getting that wet. Okay, I'm back. Let's get this microphone back on me. Thank you for that. Thanks for waiting. Okay. So you have your whole area pre-wet. Let's zoom you in a little bit. Oh, sorry, sometimes my phone is doing crazy things today. Sorry, people. Technical difficulties, it's always fun. I just wanted to get you a little bit closer in there. And accidentally you see the giant hand because I flipped the camera. Sorry. Okay, let's be serious. Serious painting here, no craziness. All right, make sure, give a double check to make sure that you didn't leave any dry areas on here, because we want the paint to flow evenly. And if anything is dry in there, then the paper or the paint's not going to flow, and you're going to have a little white hole. The first color that I'm going to use is the cobalt blue, and we can't quite get everything on screen at once, so I'll do my best to make sure you can see it. I'm loading up my brush with that, and I'm just going to give a little swoop. This part you don't have to be as careful, because when you pre-wet your paper, your paint will swim everywhere that you have already put water. So that means that if I don't get all the way up to the edges, what I can do is I can either mess with it with my brush, or I can tip the paper like this. You have to be careful, because if it's really wet, you don't want it to drip outside, but you can see if I tip my paper, the paint is going to flow everywhere where I've already put water and fill up that whole area. If it bugs you and you feel like maybe you didn't get your pre-wetting all the way to the edge, this is a time when you can use a detail brush with a little blue paint on it, and you can carefully bring it up around to get to all those areas that you think you might have missed. And that's it. We're going to leave it alone for right now. We're going to come back and hit this later. I do want to get that. I just want to smooth that area out. Sometimes paint collects, and I didn't want it to collect right there. So we're going to leave that be. And because this is wet, we need to stay away from the rest of the cup right here, because if I put wet here and the blue's already wet, then we're going to have a soupy mess. So we're going to come back to this cup later, but for now we're going to go to the middle cup. And let's see here. How about if I do, I'm thinking about my colors. How about I do bright violet on the middle cup? Bright violet is the one that looks like this, but remember, you're choosing any colors that you want. So have fun with that, and I'm going to pick this one for tonight, so I'm getting that in my paint palette here. I like to put the paint, I like to take the paint from the paint well and then put it out here in the palette first. It gives me a chance to see if it's watered down enough and maybe I need to dilute it, or maybe if it's wet enough, we're okay. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. I've got that paint ready in the palette, but with just a water brush, so just clear water like we did in that blue section. I'm going to wet this whole entire cup and my handle, because I'm going to make the handle be the same color as the cup on this one. This is your choice. If you want your handle to be a different color, don't paint it yet. Leave it dry. You can decide later what color you want to paint it, but I'm going to be, for ease and for the beginners out there, I'm trying to make things easy for us, and I'm pre-wetting also the handle. So if this brush feels too big for you, you can always switch over to a smaller brush. I'm not sure what supplies you have. You may only have one size of brush. Pre-wetting all that. Watch for any dry little islands of dry paper in the middle and try that you may have missed, and try to get those. And once you have everything all pre-wet, you can dip into your paint, and all you have to do is just kind of touch it down onto the cup. You don't have to be super careful to move that paint everywhere. You're just swooshing it on. And remember how I rocked and tipped the paper on the blue part, and the paint just swam around on its own? We're going to have the same thing happen here, but you have to babysit because you've got that blue area up at the top. You want to make sure you're not going to get any drips. So be careful when you do this. Always watch all the areas of your painting, not just this pinky purple area, but everything. And it's a little tricky because you have that handle too. So I would suggest that after you rock it a little bit, you go to your smaller brush. So I'm going to go to my detail brush and clean it up a little bit. So here's where I can make sure that I'm getting the paint all the way up to my pencil lines, because maybe I didn't do that the first time. After this, I'm going to pause for a minute so that you can get caught up, because I know that people are beginners. This is a beginning class after all, and I don't want to overwhelm people and take the fun out of it by making you have to go super fast to stay up with me. And remember, if you didn't hear, once this live class is over tonight, I'm going to leave it up on Facebook as a recorded class, so you can re-watch it whenever you want, or you can share it with a friend, or if you have to leave early, it'll be there for you so that you can re-watch whatever part you need to, and get your questions answered, or just, have a chance to maybe redo it or take your time later. Some people come in and they watch right now, but then they paint later. Okay, so I'm angling my hand so it's not in your way here, because I want to do a little cleanup right here. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to let that rest. Oh, so Shelly is texting me from somewhere. If you told me earlier, I missed it. They have a monsoon rainstorm where she is today, because usually her paper dries out super fast, and wherever she is in the desert. So so today she's having more luck because it's monsooning there, and there's probably more humidity in the air. My friend used to live in Flagstaff, and they had a monsoon season, and it was also considered to be high desert. Oh, Tucson. Okay, so yeah. Tucson, Arizona. Yeah, she was in Flagstaff. So welcome, Shelly. Nice to have you in class. So I'm going to pause and let you kind of work on things for a minute here and talk to you while you're going. If I start seeing some thumbs up or smiley faces, I'll know that you're ready for me to move on to the next section. We're going to go back into these also a little bit later with another layer or another glaze, and probably right away we're going to go up into that blue to give it a little bit more depth by adding some purple into that. So we'll do that in a second, but for now we're going to just let this be. Hi, Alice. Oh, you did the mushroom class, Shelley? I liked that one. That was a fun one. Yeah. Gosh, I think that was maybe almost, could that be almost a year ago? That was early on. That was a very fun and whimsical one. Some of the older classes, I did take them down off of Facebook, and I'm going to make them into YouTube videos and put them up on YouTube, but I may be charging $5 or $10 for those. So they were free for about a year, and now it's time for them to move on and have the second part of their life. So, okay. All right, I see a few people saying they're ready to move on. So here's what we're gonna do before we do any of these other cups. I want to do a little shading up here in the blue section. So if you look at my sample I did ahead of time, you can see that there is a little bit of lavender or purple in there, and that gives us the feeling of more depth and more shadow in there. You also see some things right here. These shapes, these are called blooms, or you might call them, sometimes you hear backwash, or you hear cauliflower. Kind of looks like cauliflower. What happens is when you have paint that's starting to dry and you introduce another color that's wetter, so here the blue is starting to dry, and I introduce purple. When you introduce wetter paint than the paper has on it, it pushes things out of the way and it makes a bloom. So I think we're going to find that I'm going to get a bloom on this blue section, and it's not a big deal. It's just something that happens, and if it bugs you, there are ways to clear it up. But this is still damp. I have a slight shine on it. It's barely shiny. This purple cup's way more shiny, but the shine from where there's still water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mimic this curve, but I'm going to do it down here lower. So I'm going to bring a curve around inside here with the purple. So this gives it a little bit more of a form. We're following the form of the cup by curving it like that. We're not painting the wall or the fence. We're having a soft curve. And in a minute, you probably will see that this wetter purple paint is going to push that blue out of the way, and we're going to get a bloom, but that's okay because it gives me a chance to show you how to fix it. Okay, so there we go. That's all I needed, was just a little bit in there. I'm going to tip my paper a little to let this kind of run around, but for now, just a little bit, and then I'm going to lay it flat. And we're going to let that do its thing and start to dry out just a little bit for a few minutes, but I'm keeping my eye on it for that bloom, and then we'll fix it in a bit. So let's go on to the lower cup. I'm thinking that I'm going to make this whole lower cup the green or Viridian. I'm using Viridian, which is this green right here. But think about your saucer, cup and saucer. Do you want to have any area that might have a pattern or might still have some white or something on it? Because if you do want to have an area of white, you need to keep it white now. If you get it wet, it will go away and you won't have enough white. You won't be able to save the white. That was hard. I didn't say that the right way. I'm going to show you what I mean. So let's pre-wet this bottom cup, but let's not pre-wet the area right up here. Maybe I'm going to leave this rim white. So carefully with my brush, I'm going to start doing the clear water a little bit lower. I'm not taking it all the way up to the rim of the cup, but I'm then going to go throughout this whole bottom section here. And I'm imagining that maybe there will be a pattern or a design or some flowers or something up there in that section that I'm leaving white. So we can think about that later. Just for now, I want to save that white. Lori, you're asking me, is there a way to get the mushroom class? There will be, it's just not yet. It was on Facebook for a long time, but I pulled it down and I haven't had a chance. I haven't had the time to make it into a YouTube yet. But once it does, I'll probably post on Facebook an announcement that, hey, you can buy this class for cheap over on YouTube, and I'll probably put it in a newsletter or on my website or something too. My website is sacramentoartclasses.com. So that will be a way for you to find it in the future. Okay, so we have pre-wet that green, and now I've got my nice Viridian on here. I didn't do the handle in this one. There's a reason for it, because I'm going to show you a different technique. If you already did your handle and you got it wet, that's okay, but if you didn't, I wanted to show you something different. So here we go. And remember, you don't have to let that paint go everywhere. It's okay to have some space where it's kind of white and swimmy, because that way we can mess with that later. But I'm doing something different on this. I'm going to have two colors in here. So down here towards the bottom, I have my cobalt blue on my brush now. And so I'm going to touch a little bit of cobalt down here. If you notice, I'll hold it up closer. I didn't mix it. I just touched it down there with the brush, and it's kind of hanging out and sitting down there on the bottom. But when I start to tip the paper, you can see those two white circles. I accidentally left a couple of dry patches there, but just by tipping it, I'm going to let that blue kind of mix around a little bit. And then I'm going to use my small brush to get these dry patches wet. And I don't want to manipulate it too much. I'm just trying to get a little bit of differentiation, a little bit of something different happening there. Also check at the top where you left the white rim. Maybe with your small brush, help that green kind of get over to the corner where it needs to be. We want a clean line there. Maybe if you don't get it all the way up over on this side too, you could do that. And if you want, you can even touch a little green down into that blue. I'm just trying to get a little variation in the color. I think it makes it more interesting. Okay. All right. Okay, let's, I'm going to come up here and fix the bloom. So you can see, and I'll hold it up close, see how we have kind of this line that has formed? But my paint is still a little bit shiny, it's damp, it's not all the way dry yet, and that's the perfect time. You don't want to wait for this to be all the way dry, you want to handle it while it's still wet. And the way to fix that is to get one of your brushes. I'm going to use that middle size one, which is like a number 6 round. Looks like this. It was the black one. And I have water on the brush, but I blot a little bit on my paper towel or my rag. So it's damp, but it's not dripping wet. And so with this damp brush, I can come in here and kind of just gently clean up. It's almost like I'm sweeping. And every once in a while you see my hand go off camera because I'm sweeping away some of this cauliflower, and then I'm blotting it or wiping it on a paper towel. Because what I'm doing as I sweep is I'm picking up paint. And if I don't blot that paint away, I'm just moving it around again and again and again back into this oval. And we want to get rid of it a little bit. So just kind of gently wiping. Think of it as like you're putting on sunscreen on a baby or something. You're not pressing really hard, you're just gently blending. My teacher used to call it feathering. And so already it has helped get rid of some of that bloom. There may still be a little bit there, and that's okay, because it's not bad. It's not like a horrible thing. It happens in watercolors, and plus since you're new and you don't always know how to control the paint, no offense, I'm not picking on you, it's just something that maybe you haven't learned yet, it can be difficult. So it's good to know ways to fix things. So I've cleaned it up a little bit, and then I just got a little purple on my brush again, and I want to put a little bit more, I'm going to put a little bit more shadow down in here. So I'm kind of holding my paper tipped so that this part up here at the top is raised away from the table. It's like on a little angle. And I'm just going to put a little bit more purple down in there. And I'm holding it tipped for a while so that the paint kind of gathers. I want more blue up there and more purple down at the bottom. If you feel like you need to add a little bit more blue, you can up here at the top. And I'm keeping it tipped. This is kind of picky stuff, but it's good to learn a little bit about it. And then if you want to learn more, you can take one of those month-long classes that I have coming up. Hi, Marcia. Welcome to class. So you just kind of get a teaser or a little sampler in here, and then the other one is definitely way more technique. Okay, so I'm still holding it at an angle, and what that does is it lets the purple collect here for me, and it lets this blue collect down here for me. And all this is designed to, we're jumping around like this because we're giving each of these colors a chance to dry before we do something that, you know, connects two wet color areas. That's sometimes hard to control, so I like to space it out and skip every other so that we have a chance for things to dry. Okay, so that said, we need to handle this saucer down here. It's going to be a little tricky because the green is still dry. If you have something like a heat gun or a hair dryer, this would be a great time for you to dry your painting. I know I didn't say that ahead of time, but sometimes people, have those items at handy. I don't know if you do, but I do. So take a break or take a breath for a minute, or get yourself a little drink of water, whatever you need to do, or if you're messing with your paint. I'm going to dry this real quick so that I can kind of show you how to dry it out faster. This is a heat gun. If you haven't seen one before, maybe you've seen me use it, but it's going to make a little bit of noise for a minute. You could use a blow dryer. Just make sure you don't blow your paint all around because a blow dryer has a strong air force. So here we go. I'm going to dry this up. Okay, thanks for bearing with me on that. I don't want you to feel left out if you don't have a dryer, but since we're trying to move through this pretty quickly, I have to be able to dry so that we're not sitting here waiting and waiting for everything to dry up, and then we'd never finish on time. And look, it's already 7:13. I did tell you that I'm going to try and have you out of here early, so I'm going to push forward on this and see how close we can get to that. Okay, so remember, we left this white rim here around the cup. So how about we leave some type of a white area on this saucer too, since I'm saying that this saucer and this cup are matchy-matchy. So let me think. I think I'm going to have the white area be, I could either have it around the edge like that. Yes, I'm going to have it around the outer edge because this is up at the top. So I'm going to put this at the edge. So with your paintbrush, you're going to want to take clear water again, and you're going to just wet the area inside. Give yourself that white edge. If you chose not to leave a white edge, some people may just want to have everything painted. That's totally fine. I just am leaving a little white edge because then I can show you some fun designs or something that you could add later. It's up to you. You may want to have a completely painted saucer. So you're going to paint everything, including this little spill well down here at the bottom. Try not to get water on the cup that you've already painted. Try to go around that. And if you don't know, I have a website. It's sacramentoartclasses.com. And on the website, I have a newsletter that you could sign up to get. Just click the newsletter tab at the top of the page. I only send out a newsletter once, maybe twice a month, but it will update you whenever I got to do this upside down, so that's what's happening. It will update you whenever I have new classes coming up or any other things that are going on. And I have 2 new classes that are starting next week. There's watercolor on Wednesday nights at 5:30, and we're going to be painting old boats, kind of like beached boats in watercolor. It's a pretty cool rustic painting. And it's the same painting for all 4 weeks. So we work really in detail and learn a lot of techniques and take our time on that. So that's Wednesdays, watercolor. And then Thursdays at 5 o'clock, I'm doing an acrylic class, and we're doing an old weathered barn that has kind of a sunflower field or a couple sunflowers in the foreground. So it's a nice sort of fall painting, even though we're still in summer. I'm kind of feeling fall-ish. And so that is going to be on Thursdays. Both of these classes are 90 minutes long, and they come with a video. So if you need to watch it again, within 24 hours of the class, I produce a video and send it to you. So it's nice because then you can watch it anytime, and then you own that video. It's not like it's ever going to disappear on you. As long as you save it on your computer, you'll have that to look at things again later. Okay, so we've wet that, and again, my color was Viridian, so I'm going to go back into my Viridian and put that in the wet areas. I don't have to be super careful because the water that we laid down ahead of time is going to make this paint swim, and it will travel to all the wet areas without me having to really work it. And that's when, remember, we would pick up the paper and rock it carefully, making sure that we don't go crazy, because you don't want to have it drip. If you have quite a lot of water on there, it still could drip outside of the pre-wet area. And then if you need to, you can take your detail brush and clean up your edges, maybe get close to where this handle is, and get close up to the other cup. If you were really good with your pre-wetting, you may have already got right up here and you don't even need to worry about it, but I was not as careful, so I have to give it a little help. This is a nice way too, if you made a little mistake or you skipped something, you can do cleanup with your small brush. How are we doing, everybody? I haven't seen any questions come up. If you have questions about anything, you can pop them in that chat, and I'll be on the lookout for them. I want to hit this little guy down here too, the base underneath, and I'm just doing this. I didn't pre-wet this. I'm just using my small brush, and I'm getting that whole section down here just on dry paper. I didn't do a wet into wet. It's just on normal dry paper. Yeah, let's clean this up. Okay, I'm going to hold it a little bit closer in case you need to see better. Hi Denise, thanks for watching. I think it would be fun, since I added that blue into the base of the cup, I'm going to put a little blue down here into the, whatever it's called. I call it, like, I guess it's the spill area. I don't know. It's the depressed area where your cup fits nicely into the saucer. So with my medium-sized brush, I'm going to just put a little bit. It's going to swim around quite a bit because it's pretty wet down there, but I'm just going to give a little hint of color. I'll probably have to go back and babysit that because it's going to swim around, but I just wanted there to be a little something else down here that is different. And for kicks, let's put a little bit down here too, because this is going to be a little bit in shadow. It's underneath the saucer, so the overlapping, the brim or the rim of the saucer is leaving this guy in shadow, so I just added a little blue into that as well. And it's always good to have Kleenex, because I dripped water here, so I'm going to blot that and get that dry. Okay. All right. Can I get some thumbs up to let me know that you're ready to go on? If you're ready. Thank you. I see 1 or 2 thumbs coming up. By the way, thank you for being here on a Tuesday night. Shelly, I use paint from tubes, but I let them dry. So I put paints in my palette ahead of time from a tube. You can buy, they're called pans or half pans where it's pre-filled, but I buy specific colors that I want, and I squirt them in here, and then I let them dry out for several days. So that when I want to use them, I just spray them and get them a little bit dampened, and I use them that way. I don't like to paint with them totally right out of the tube, because it's like painting with toothpaste, and you just end up getting way too much on your brush. So I always let them dry, and I think that's the standard way to go, is let them dry out ahead of time, and then you just leave them in your palette forever. Okay, I see lots of thumbs up, so here we go. Let's go back up to the top. I used my dryer, so these guys up here are all dry. So I'm going to hit this top cup right here, and I'm going to have that be Imperial Purple, which is this. You may have, if you're not using Daniel Smith brands, you might not have Imperial Purple. You might have something called Windsor Violet, or if you're using Crayola paints, or just whatever you can find, just whatever that purple is, if you're trying to follow my color scheme. So here's what it looks like. It's pretty dark. It's the purple that I used on the inside of the cup for shadowing. So I have it here on the palette. And this one, let's do it a little differently. We are not going to pre-wet this cup. We're going to put it on dry. So I need to turn mine upside down, because my hand would go in all this wet stuff down here. So that's why I'm going to paint this upside down. So I'm just going to carefully paint with that. Just the cup, nothing special, no secret different techniques. I'm using that larger quill brush. It has a very precise tip, so when I'm doing wet on dry like this, I can get really precise in there, and basically carve out my cup shape real easily. And again, I'm going to rotate. Feel free to, you can always move your paper around. You don't have to angle your hand into crazy ways. Make it easy on yourself, and angle your paper if you need to. Now here, I'm going to do the side of the cup, but I'm not doing that handle yet, for a reason. You'll see why in a second. So as I'm painting this, I'm thinking to myself, there's no real punch here. There's no real wow, pow. I've got all these colors that are kind of blending together in a way that's like, why is that? Like, it's not giving me the cool punch that I want to have happen. So, and I kind of did it on purpose, because I want to show you what you can do to fix something like that, or make it more interesting. And what that is anytime when you don't have enough pow or enough impact, you can add another color in. So I have here, what is this one? This is I don't want to add that one in. Let me think about it for a second. I'm going to pick a blue. I have a different blue that I haven't shown you yet. It's called phthalo blue. It's spelled P-H-T-H-A-L-O, phthalo blue. And it's got a little more vibrancy than the blue that we put inside of the cup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the handle in phthalo blue. And you can see it's got like I don't know, it's not turquoise, it's got a brightness to it that I think this painting needs. And I'm carefully painting the handle on dry paper. I didn't pre-wet the handle, but then all of a sudden here, when I get up to the cup, my handle is now going to touch into the wet paint of the cup, and there's going to be some blending happening. And I want that to happen on purpose, because I want to show you how fun it is to let different colors mix together on their own. So here I've come around again up at the top, and now it's going to cross over. I actually helped it a little bit with my brush. So I'm going to have color that's bleeding in up here. Looks like this. I'm tipping a little bit. And to make that blend and bleed a little bit more, with just a damp brush, there's no paint on it, it's just water, I'm going to help it. I'm going to kind of come in here and move it around a little bit. Pull it down here. Maybe bring it across the bottom. And I'm not forcing it everywhere. I don't want to manipulate everything. I want it to kind of do its own thing, but I'm just creating some interest by adding a second color into that purple. It was just too plain. So I'm just touching some of that blue on down at the bottom here. And if you have to, you can do sections of the handle another layer, make it a little darker. You can do it now, or you can wait until it's dried. Boy, I keep seeing my hand quite a lot tonight. I'm sorry, I bet you that's frustrating for you. I've got to be really careful with tipping, because that handle is a place where I could really lose control, and then we'd have paint going everywhere. So I'm going to leave it at that. This is what it looks like. On purpose, I wanted mottled, varied color in there. I didn't want it to be all the same. And so while you're playing around with that, I'm going to use the heat gun again to dry mine so that we can go on to the next section. Let me see. You are saying, do I use paint from tubes? Yes, I use a spray pot. Shelly, I use a spray bottle to re-wet my paints before class. I'll mist the colors that I want to use, or tonight I misted everything. I just did a little spray on there so that it just re-wets them and gets them primed. Okay, so now we have a little bit of variety happening in that upper cup, and at the end we can go back and do things like any little cleanup that we might have to do, or maybe we want to take some of this dark just a little bit around the edge there, just a little bit around the rim, just so that we kind of see that it carries around. But we don't need to do it just yet. It's just something for later. The next thing that I'm going to focus on is this bottom cup. So these white areas, I asked you to, well, I didn't ask you, you can use whatever colors you want, but I mentioned that I was going to use a Hansa yellow light, which is a bright sunny yellow. So I think I'm going to do something on here with that. And let me think for a second. It might be nice to do a base of yellow and then later come back and maybe add something like a blue on top of it, like little maybe flowers or something. It just depends on how much time we have. So on dry paper, so not pre-wetting the paper, I'm going to take that Hansa yellow light, which looks like this. It's very bright yellow, and I'm going to put some out here on my palette. And it's pretty intense. Even though this paint is from the tube, out of a tube, it's been on here drying forever. But when I sprayed it tonight, it really soaked up the water. So I have quite intense yellow here. If you don't want that much of an intensity to your yellow and you want it a little bit more transparent, you can just add more water to it. It's going to be up to you. So I did add a little more water on mine because I don't want it to be just like super opaque. And then just with my dry brush, I'm going to come around and paint out the white. If you wanted to leave it white, you definitely don't have to put yellow on it. You could put something like blue flowers or yellow flowers or a design or polka dots. You could have whimsical things. Kind of anything goes on here. Or you could make a stripe like this of a different color. Sorry, I'm going a little fast, and I got a little bit of yellow onto my green, so I want to switch to a smaller brush. Here we go. Now I have more control. If you accidentally go over, like I did right here, you can take a damp brush, blot out some of the water, and just take a damp brush and carefully go over that, and it will lift out some of that yellow. You want to make sure to blot your paintbrush in between and don't have water on it. You just want it to be really barely damp, but it's kind of like an eraser, and it'll lift out some of the color. So I'm still going to have to babysit it, but you can see that it lifted out and it cleaned some of that up for me. I think that this is a fun one, kind of like the mushrooms that we did a long time ago. This painting lets us be pretty creative. We don't have to stick to any kind of colors. We can do whatever we want, because if you wanted a real whimsical look, you can have that by your color choice. If you wanted high drama, you could have, maybe you want black. I barely ever use black, but this might be a good one to do something like that on, because what if you had like a red teacup with a black handle or something? You could get some cool looks to these, and I'm excited to see what everybody does. By the way, I have a Facebook group. It's called Sacramento Art Classes Students. So if you look that up and you request to join the group, I will of course say yes to you. I'll approve you, but that's a process you have to go through. You have to actually ask to get into the group, and that is a place where you can post your paintings, your finished paintings, at the end. It's the only people that can see it are those who are in the group, and the people who are in the group have all been students, so I don't just let any random person in. And if you're shy to share your work, or you just don't really feel like putting stuff out for everybody on social media, you can put it there, and then you'll get really nice compliments and comments from others in the class. And it's kind of like almost like being together, because we can see each other's work. I don't have any way to see your work any other way unless you post it. You can see mine, but you can't see each other's, and I can't see yours. So anyway, you're welcome to do that. I would love to invite you to do that. Sacramento Art Classes Students. And I'll watch for that. Sometimes I don't see it until the next day, so if I don't approve you right away, it's not because of anything bad, it's just because maybe I didn't see it. Okay, so here is the rim of the cup and the saucer painted out yellow. And I'm still thinking about what I want to do with that handle that I haven't painted yet, so I'm going to leave it alone right now. I'm just going to think about it for a while. While you're painting, I'm going to dry mine. Okay, I'm watching the screen for any thumbs up about being ready to go on. And while I'm watching for that, I'm going to just talk to you about the next steps. I'm not going to do anything yet. We still need to put some shadow on the inside of the lavender cup and the bottom cup. So that gives us an inside. We need to do that. We need to jazz up that middle cup because it's pretty boring. So one of the other colors that I asked for was quinacridone magenta. So I'm going to use that to jazz up that middle guy. And last but not least, I'm going to put some pattern onto the yellow sections and paint out this handle. Oh, and not last but least, really now last but least, is I got to add a shadow underneath here. Okay, so those are the things, and then we're going to be almost done here because these last little bits are pretty quick. Okay, so I was using cobalt blue before, which is what I'm going to use again, and I'm using the detail brush. I'm going to come down here right in places like inside of this. There's a little inside of the purple cup that you can see there and there, and then inside of the green and yellow cup. So I'm just going to paint those. Let me paint them first, and I'll hold it up so that you can see better. Okay, let me see, where am I? Right here. I want to be pretty light with this cobalt over here because the top cup is blue as well, and it would be easy for them to blend together if I made it the same exact color. So it's pretty small, but you can kind of see a little bit better this way that I've added that in there. And then with that same cobalt, I'm going to do the same thing inside of the yellow cup. Can you see it's just like right here and a little this bit right there. And now I've got to do it here. I'm doing it on dry paper, and I'm using the detail brush. Cobalt blue. Has anybody seen the Netflix documentary special that they have on Bob Ross? I just watched it recently. It's just, I think it was only one episode, or maybe it was a movie, I can't remember, but it was a thing about Bob Ross's life. And if you can't remember who he is, he's the PBS painter. He was the guy with the big afro, and he did all those oil paintings. And it was really an interesting story about what happened in his life. So it was kind of fun to watch and learn about really how that went for him. So I highly recommend that. Okay, so now I have painted both of the insides of the cups. So it's time to jazz up that middle cup because it's kind of boring. So the middle cup was made with bright violet paint, which is here, and quinacridone magenta was the other one that I asked for, or that I said that I was going to use. And so what I'm going to do is, with my middle-sized brush, I'm going to get some onto the brush, but I don't want a lot. So this is what my palette looks like. Okay, here's the paint color here. Can you see how my brush is flattening itself out, or I'm flattening it as I smoosh the paint around? I'm trying to have a little bit of a flatness to this brush, kind of like a paddle for a canoe or a kayak. And our light source is going to come from the left. So the light is on the left, which means the cast shadow and anything darker will be on the right. So I want to use this paddle brush with the quinacridone magenta to do a layer over the top of this section, this side over here. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create depth to this, and maybe I'll pull it up on the underside of this handle over here, because right now it's just one flat color, and it's always more exciting when you have more things happening, more colors. So I'm putting it kind of on the underside of this handle, not along the top, and like right in here, just to create a sense of shadow happening. And then I'm going to rinse my brush and blot it. So right now it just only has like dampness to it, and I'm just going to kind of soften this, blend this just a little bit. I have to be careful because sometimes you can actually lift up your paint, but I'm just kind of blending that in a little. Let's get a little bit up there. And now already it's doing something slightly more interesting. Then with the same brush, I'm going to bring a little bit of that quinacridone magenta, or whatever color. If your cup was green, you're going to use maybe the same green in another layer, or a darker green. And I'm just going to pull that around here so that it has a little shadow where it's coming up out of the cup, the green and yellow cup. Okay, there we go. And now let's get some shadow down here. Take a look at the sample. Remember I said that the light source is coming from the left, so it's going to cast a shadow onto the right hand side. So with that cobalt blue again that I've used inside of the cups, and I have that on my palette ready. I want to create this kind of like an oval that comes out to this side a little bit. It's skinnier here, and it thickens up, and then it kind of comes out like this. But this is a beginner class, so we're not going to worry too much about the exact precision of this thing. But we're gonna do our best to just give ourselves an oval. I'm doing it with just water first, and then here comes some paint. I did it with water first because I just want a soft shadow. I don't want to have a pow of shadow. Like, I don't want it to be overwhelming. So now I can clean it up a little bit. Bring it out, maybe like this. I'm sorry, I'm really not happy with the lighting in our room tonight. I've got to readjust things. Okay, so there's a shadow. And if there's a shadow there, and there's a shadow on this guy, we need something over here on this side of the yellow. So with the same cobalt blue, I'm going to pull this green around a little bit. That was down here in the saucer, just a little on that side. I'm going to put a little blue on this side of the cup. You could even put a little blue up on that yellow if you want to. I'll hold it up in a second so that you can see. But I'm just deepening the color on this side of the cup. And if your cup is dry like mine, it's pretty easy to do. It's not going to swim around everywhere. It's just going to stay where you put it. So I'm putting some down at the bottom and like that. And this is what it looks like up close. This side of my big cup is pretty much already kind of darker, so I'm not really worried about that one. So now the last decision that I have to make, and then we're done for tonight, is what color do I want that handle to be, and do I want the color of the handle to also be some type of design color in the yellow sections. So whenever I'm trying to decide on a color, you know, and I don't maybe know what color I want in there, I'll go through the rainbow. We have a nice palette of harmonious colors here already, and I could look at those first. So here they are again. I could say, do I want purple? Maybe. Purple and yellow are opposite colors on the color wheel, and so that makes them complementary and they look really nice together. So I could do that. I don't want any more blue. I don't think I want that magenta or this violet because those are in the middle cup. It's already green. So pretty much if I'm staying with this palette, the only choice I have is the purple. But if you want to go outside of your chosen palette, you can go through the colors of the rainbow, and you can look at this cup and you can say, red, orange, yellow, already got it, so no. Green, no. Blue, no. Purple, and again, it leads me kind of back to purple again. I could do black. I could do a mixture of colors, but because we're on a little bit of a time limit, I'm going to just go with straight purple, and this is the Imperial Purple. You might have Windsor Violet, but with my middle-sized brush, actually, nope, I'm going to go for the smaller brush. With my smaller brush, I'm going to just paint onto dry paper because I have way more control with dry paper. I'm going to paint the handle, and as I'm painting it, I'm going to think about, do I want a pattern in that yellow? And you could have any number of things. If you like whimsy, maybe you want maybe some diamonds or something, diamond shape. If you're more of a old-fashioned, well, although these colors are not exactly old-fashioned, you can do sort of maybe flowers. You could do polka dots. You could do zigzag colors. You could do polka dots, might be kind of fun, and those are easy. Let me show you one thing before I decide. I want to show you one of those other paintings that I put up earlier, because that might be an inspiration for somebody. So just let me get this handle real quick. Okay, so there's my handle. Here is an idea. They are sort of flowers or vines, but I just basically took my brush and squiggled it around. And I had got this kind of interesting pattern. So you could do something like that. This other one that I did, and these are acrylics, it just has sort of a suggestion of something happening in there. I don't really know what, but just a suggestion. So you could do something like that. Denise says stripes. Stripes would be cool. pretty much anything that you want, anything goes. And I'm going to stick with that purple. So let me see here. Stripes, sometimes my hand is not as steady as I want it to be and my stripes come out a little crooked. So let's see, let me think about it for a second. I feel like it might be fun to just have some oval polka dots. Let's do that. And you could jazz up any of these cups with a design pattern. It's up to you. We won't have time to do designs on everything during class, but you could really, you know, look on Pinterest and look for some kind of fun ideas. These, because I'm laying purple over the top of yellow, they mix a little bit, and so it's just reading as a dark color. But when people look at it and they see that purple handle there, the brain is going to tell us that these are purple, hopefully. Cross our fingers. We're almost out of time. I didn't quite finish at 7:30 like I wanted to, but it's 7:47, so I'm thinking that we're going to finish before 8. This is a good time if you have questions. Put it in the chat and I can answer it while I'm here today. This is a recorded, it is being recorded, and so once Facebook is ready for me, I will leave it up on, once the video is processed by Facebook, I'll leave it up for you and you can look at it later online. What else can I tell you? Don't forget, if you're interested in learning more, I have 2 classes starting next week, watercolors on Wednesday, acrylics on Thursday, and all the information is on my website, which is sacramentoartclasses.com, and you can sign up for class or read about class or sign up for a newsletter there. What else do I need to tell you? There's a Facebook group, Sacramento Art Classes Students, that you can sign up or ask to become a member, and once I approve you, you can post your finished painting so we can all see it. Marsha's here, and Marsha's really good at reminding me of things. So did I forget anything, Marsha? I have a YouTube channel. Just look up my name, Margaret Blanchfield, and really what's on the YouTube channel is some free stuff for kids, or maybe you might enjoy it too. But since I teach school, when we first went into COVID lockdown last year in March, I had to teach everything online, so I made all these lessons and I put them up on Facebook for the kids, and that was our Zoom class, but they're up there still for free if anybody wants to check them out. You're bored one day, you need something to do, you can check those out on YouTube. Wow, this is a pretty spotty cup. I don't think I'm in love with my choice, but it's already happening. So no real way for me to change this. Okay, let's see. Nobody put up any questions, so I think we must be good. Now that I see this with the spots down here, they're pretty eye-catching, so I may want to go and add some more detail on some of the other cups, because all we see is this black, reads as black or dark purpley black. All we see is that. We go right to that and we don't really notice the rest of the cups. So the smart move for me would be to put something else on one of the other cups so that your eye, you always want the viewer's eye to bounce around on your painting and not just get stuck in one spot. And right here, it's going to be stuck in one spot. So a trick that you can do too is, if you put paint down and it seems way too dark for you, test this on something unimportant first, but you can put a Kleenex over it very carefully and blot, of course, before it dries. And you can lift out some of the paint, and watercolor, as it dries, it fades a little bit. So the intensity when it's wet is slightly different than when it's dry. Okay, see, so it lifted up some. You can see that they're less bold. But that's what happens when you put purple and yellow together. They make a real dark color like that, and it looks kind of nice. And when people look at it up close, I think you're going to see that and feel like it's purple. But if it bugs you, if you did what I did and it bugs you, there's no reason why you can't drop another color into it. So if you don't like the way that looks, you can put some of your magenta in there and jazz it up that way. So you have lots of choices. Okay, I think that's about it for mine today anyway. I may play with it a little later on, but that's about all. What else? Suzanne, did you have fun? I'm glad. See you tomorrow in class. Let's see. Sandy says, thank you. The spots are whimsical and gives it a cute pop. And a background. I'm not doing a background on this one, but you could if you wanted to. Let's see, Patricia's asking me that. If you wanted a background, you can do something like grab a ruler and place this on a table. So right now it's just floating except for the fact that you have the shadow under there. But you could use a ruler. I like the kind that has a T on it because it grabs the edge of the paper and it makes my line be nice and horizontal. But figure out where you want, like let's say I might want my table to be about here, and you could very, very lightly with pencil draw a line for yourself, and you could then lightly paint a table color behind it and a different color for the wall. Or you could do kind of a vignette. A vignette means you're leaving some white, so you could use a large brush and just do kind of some fun color back behind here, just sort of a suggestion of color to ground it. You could, what else could you do? You could paint striped wallpaper if you want. I would do a wide stripe, but that's a lot of work. And then a table down here maybe. And especially if you're doing a whimsical thing, a wide striped wallpaper might be kind of fun. So those are my ideas, but no, I don't always do a background on things just because we are limited on our amount of time. So anyway, let me switch up the camera and say goodbye to you in real life, and then I'll put it back on the table for a minute in case you need another look. So here we go. And here comes my face on extreme close-up. Okay, so anyway, thank you everybody. The light has sure changed. Now it's dark at almost 8 o'clock. It's funny because in the summer it was light all the time. So this is the first time I've had a class this year where it's dark at the end. So anyway, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you spending your Tuesday night with me. It's always fun to do these. The next one is going to be on September 28th at 6:30. If you haven't put anything in the chat, you can always put a request for what you might want to paint since I haven't decided yet. So you can put that in the chat. Thank you for being here, and I'll put this back on the table again so you can take a peek, and I hope to see you again next time. Thanks for coming. Bye. Here we go, back down here. I'm going to put these side by side. Let's move these paints out of the way. I'm going to try and get as much in here for you to see as I can. Get rid of that. Here's this in case some people are interested. Some people are not in tipping. It's okay. It's not expected, but I put it up there just in case. And I think we're good. Okay, I'll leave you here for just a minute or two, and then I'm going to shut it down.